Namaste everyone. Thank you for joining me on this video. So today I'm just trying to focus on on the various parts or the limbs or the angas of Jyotish. Okay. So just like there are 6 Vedangas for the Vedas. So similar to that, there are 6 limbs to Jyotish. Okay. And these limbs of Jyotish have been mentioned very specifically in the Prashna Marga. Okay, in the Prashna Marga by Harihara. And for those who don't know, Prashna Marga is a text on horary astrology. That means on the art of interpreting horoscopes. Okay, so what Prashna Marga states, or rather what Harihara states, is that the one who is fluent with all the 6 branches of astrology will never make mistakes in predictions. Okay, and that is actually a very tall order. All right, because the astrologers that we come across in day-to-day life, right, all the 100% predictions will not come true, will never come true, because to err is human, right? I have made mistakes with my predictions. Okay, the masters whom I have learned astrology from, they make consistent mistakes in their predictions, but that is a part of life. That is what makes us all humans. Okay, but then an astrologer who never errs in predictions, that astrologer is known as the Devagya. Okay, and the word Devagya is of course it's a Sanskrit term which roughly translates to a knower of God's intentions, right? And picking on that quality, there are 6 limbs of Jyotish. Okay, the first limb is known as Gola, right? So Gola deals with spherical astronomy and direct observations, or observational astronomy, if I could put it that way. Ganita, it deals with astronomical and astrological calculations. Jataka, it deals with birth or natal astrology. And the 4th part is known as Prashna, which actually includes answering questions without the use of a natal chart. It is also known as the horary astrology. Muhurta is about choosing astrologically auspicious beginnings for any endeavor. Nowadays, it is also known as electional astrology. And then we have Nimitta, which relates to the interpretation of different kinds of omens, right? So I'll just give a brief description of all the parts, and then we can understand more as we read and analyze charts. Okay. So Gola, or observational astrology, right? So we know that Vedic astrology, it concentrates its observations on 9 planets. Of course, you can list down the 9 planets as per the basis of the weekday. You start with the Sun, then Moon, Mars, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, and finally we put the shadow planets Rahu and Ketu. Okay, and from the scientific point of view, the word planets is obviously it's a misnomer. Okay, because out of the planets that I've mentioned, only 5 of them are what science recognizes as planets, and the other 4, right, the Sun is a star. Okay, the Moon is it is the satellite of the Earth, and Rahu and Ketu, they have no physical scientific existence at all. Okay, so Rahu, also known as the north node, it is the northern intersection, and Ketu is the southern intersection. Okay, Ketu of course is known as the south node. So Rahu is the northern intersection and Ketu is the southern intersection of the plane of the moon's orbit around the Earth with the plane of the ecliptic. Okay, and what is the ecliptic? It is the plane on the Earth's orbit around the sun, which is perceived by observers on Earth as the sun's orbit around the Earth. And I have dealt with the ecliptic and how Rahu and Ketu are formed in details on my free Vedic astrology course, foundation course for beginners, which I conduct every Sunday. Okay, so if you want to join that course, please feel free to message me on WhatsApp. The number has been shared in the description box, right? So anyways, these 2 orbital planes, they intersect because the moon's orbital plane is inclined about 5 degrees from the plane of the ecliptic, and the 2 nodes are the points where solar and lunar eclipses occur. Okay, and some astrologers of the modern times, after noting that that science has discovered other planets and then numerous asteroids, they will assert that Vedic astrology is somehow incomplete Okay, and it can be added, it can be improved by adding these, these newly discovered planets and asteroids to the, to the library of Vedic astrology. Okay, but it is no coincidence that the number of the planets used in Jyotish is also the number of single digit integers in our decimal numbering system, right? So what I feel is that, Jyotish does not need any more than these 9 planets to describe reality, because these 9 planets are more than just material entities. They are also known as the Graha Devatas. Okay, and for those people, the ones who seek to add new planets to Jyotish, they do so only because they have not comprehended this art and science which we call as Vedic astrology. Okay, now coming to Ganita, which is which of course deals with observations and calculations for horoscopes as well as for computing calendars, okay, seasons, then eclipses, lunar, and other planetary cycles. Okay, so there are a lot of matters that are included within the Ganita part of Jyotish, and since the ancestors, they had no aids as sophisticated as the modern astrologer for calculations, right? As modern astrologers, we are very much dependent on our softwares. Okay, there are paid softwares, there are free softwares, but because the astrologers of the past, they did not have these, these sophisticated tools and implements. So most of these astrologers of the past, they were forced to master, to master both mathematics and spherical astronomy in order to generate their data. Okay, and such astrologers, they always took their calculations seriously. And the famous astrologer Varahamihira, he has cautioned in his Jataka that if you make an error in Ganita, it is as criminal as a sin as the murder of a Brahman or a priest. Okay, so even if you are not doing, if you're not doing calculations by your hand, even if you are using softwares to calculate, you should cross verify your calculations, because a few wrong calculations can actually make you give out wrong predictions, and the client will be left high and dry, apart from attracting bad karma to yourself as well. Okay, so because Jyotish originally included astronomy and astrology as two inseparable portions of one and the same study, so the works that discussed both Gola and Ganita, they went under the name of Siddhanta. Okay, and we know that the most famous Siddhanta is the Surya Siddhanta and the Drik Siddhanta, right? But because inequalities were very much present in the earlier days, and even the Vedic astrologers of the olden days, they knew this. They knew that these inequalities were inevitable. Okay, so what happened was that, the Surya Siddhanta, if you read the Surya Siddhanta, it actually advises Jyotishis to use regular observations to confirm the accuracy of predicted planetary motions. So this is very, very important. Okay, so at every step of the way, the astrologer must judge himself or herself. Okay, whether they are doing the calculations in the correct way or not. Okay, and then comes natal astrology, which is of course known as the Jatak. Okay, and what is Jatak? Jatak is the art of relating the position of the planets at an individual's time and place of birth with the various events in that person's life. So this is actually which has become the modern day astrology. Okay, and Jatak astrology, whatever you see in all the astrological books, no matter who is writing those astrological books, most of them would be 90% of those books would be focused on Jatak astrology or natal astrology. So then we have the Prashna, which is also known as the horary astrology. Okay, and what it does is that horary astrology, it investigates the correlation of planetary phenomena at at the time when the question is asked with an answer to that question. Okay, and almost all questions are answerable from a horoscope calculated, and such a horoscope to answer a question is calculated either at the time of the question, or or it is determined in a variety of other ways, like like the phonetic values of the syllables uttered by the questionnaire, or the parts of the body the questioner might touch, or maybe the astrologer, some astrologers would have a compass direction in which the questionnaire was asked to stand at the time of framing the question. And very in the current days that we have, the days of internet astrology, most of the astrologers, they will ask the client to choose a random number. okay, specifically between 1 and 108. So that is also a way of calculating prashna. Okay, and there are very few classical texts on prashna. Dr. B.V. Raman has a book on prashna. Okay, and if you look at the classics, then there is the work of Varahamihira, which is titled as Daivagya Vallabha. Okay, then there is the work of the work by Prithuyasha. Okay, Prithuyasha is of course Varahamihira's son. His work is known as Shat Panchika. Okay, Shat Panchasika, if I have to be really clear. Okay, and then Prashna Marga, we know that it is it is a very detailed and complex work. Okay, the author is anonymous. Okay, but most of us would credit it to the work of Prashna Marga is credited to Harihara. Okay, and then there is this famous Tajika work by Nilakantha, which is known as Prashna Tantra. Okay, so these are the various sources which actually will help you to study Prashna astrology in great details. Okay, then we come to Muhurta, which of course is known as as electional astrology in popular notion, right? And the Jyotish, we know it is the eye of the Veda, partly because it enables the the astrologer to see the the astronomical moment when religious and social rituals should be performed, right? And it is believed that actions tend to produce results according to the planetary configurations under which they are initiated. Okay, and the need to to understand the efficiency of actions begun at a given moment, okay, may have made this Muhurta branch of astrology the first sector of Jyotish to have been systematically developed. Okay, and the literature in this field is of course very small as compared to Jataka and Prashna, but it is relatively concise. Okay, and the standard work is known as the Kala Prakashika of Narasimha. Okay, and most of the texts on Muhurta astrology, they are oral based, and nowadays it is actually these texts are gradually being converted into printed copies. Okay, then we have finally we have Nimitta, which is the interpretation of omens. Okay, and Varahamihira said that to read an omen is to read the book of nature. Okay, a tome which is written in the language of events. Okay, and the texts of Samhita Skanda deal extensively with the interpretation of such non-cyclical omens as the flights of birds, okay, the sights and sounds encountered during journeys, the burning of lamp wicks, and the appearance of meteors, right? And amongst the many varieties of natural omens, celestial omens are always predictable or more or less predictable, so as to say. Okay, and but one must be very, very clear that that a thorough understanding and interpretation of omens requires one to be very, very intuitive. Okay, and it is nearly impossible to interpret this nimitta without direct instruction from a skilled omenologist. Okay, so what happens is that this limb of Jyotish, it is very much dependent on oral tradition, but still sections sections which are devoted to it, they appear in the classical works, and the most famous of those classical works is the the Brahat Samhita of Varahamihira. Okay, so that's it from my end, right? It was it was really a pleasure discussing the various angas or the limbs of Jyotish with all of you, and I'm really, really grateful to all of you for watching my video. Kindly leave behind your valuable comments, subscribe to this channel, okay, like the video, watch the video, and if you have any doubts, you are most welcome to reach me at the number which is which is provided at the description box. All right, so I thank you for taking your time out to watch this video. I'll soon be back with another video. Om Gurave Namaha.